Being a Westerner in Russia is still prestigious. This inferiority complex Russians have is very bad for Russian society, but has been a real winner for my sex life.
Tsar Experience.
Привет! So there, you just listened to a short clip from Tim Kirby, who is a presenter on Russia Beyond, which is a YouTube channel here and a website that deals with Russian culture as part of Russian government's soft power. And there's a lot of quite interesting content there. And this video is going to be particularly valuable to analyze for you because it's a layman's reaction to his experience being in Russia for quite a number of years as an American guy. So he's not a dating coach. He is a presenter on this YouTube channel, Russia Beyond, and he's giving you the layman's interpretation, and we're going to be together analyzing exactly, breaking it down step to step, his experience in Russia as a foreign guy dating Russian women. So greetings, first of all, from Odessa, Ukraine. So I'm not in Russia. 2020 was supposed to be the year of Russia for me on this channel, and then we had all the COVID mayhem travel mess, so I haven't got there yet, but I am optimistic in 2021 I'm finally going to get to go to Russia and produce a good bit of content for you. If there is a particular topic that you'd like me to cover in Russia or a particular city for me to go to, obviously nothing so obvious like go to Moscow and St. Petersburg or tell us the difference between Ukrainian and Russian girls. I will be doing those anyways, but if there is some other particular topic, then drop me a comment below and I will keep that in mind when I finally go to Russia. So let's jump into analyzing Tim's experience in Russia as an American guy. We're going to go through the video. It's not a very long video, and I will link it below in the description. You're going to go and watch the original yourself afterwards. So let's get into it.
Friends, I have dated literally dozens of Russian women. Heck, I may already be in the triple digits, and well, I've been dumped by them all, which gives me a wealth of practical dating advice about what not to do while dating a Russian woman. So here's how you can learn from my mistakes.
Super excited about this to see how he presents it.
One, don't be cheap. Being a Westerner in Russia is still prestigious. This inferiority complex Russians have is very bad for Russian society, but has been a real winner for my sex life. Russian girls see you as a golden ticket to a life of comfort and riches. The problem comes when the millionaire won't spend thousands or even hundreds of dollars on them. You'll be labeled as a cheapskate and blocked over WhatsApp forever.
So number one, he says, don't be cheap. 100% agree, you don't want to be perceived as cheap. That kind of goes really in most countries and most cultures, but definitely in Russia, you do not want to be perceived as cheap, as a cheap skate. Now, it's interesting that he says if you're not spending thousands of dollars or at least hundreds of dollars on the girl, that's what you get labeled. That's what a gold digger will label you. And not just in Russia, but anywhere else in the world. You're not just, because they're with you for the money. So if you're not a simp just throwing out the cash to them, or at least a guy who is spending a lot of money on them, even a guy who's not a simp but just understands that he wants to pay and he still keeps the power for himself and he's setting boundaries at the same time. For sure, the majority of Russian women are not gold diggers, in spite of the stereotype. Because unfortunately, a bit like in Ukraine, maybe not as extreme overall in my experience, but there are a lot of scammers that tend to target the foreign guys who come in or see the foreign guys as the meal ticket, at least. He used, I think he said meal ticket actually in the video as well. So if he is meeting all these girls who are blocking him on WhatsApp because he won't spend thousands of dollars on them, he's running into a lot of gold diggers. And it seems that he doesn't spend the money on them, so they block him, which actually, inadvertently, and maybe he's not conscious, is probably a good thing for him. He doesn't seem like the type of guy who's looking for a gold digger. So if they're blocking him, then it's kind of vetting them out for him. He should be doing that himself. This is what we do on my Slavic Seduction Secrets. We go into it and we analyze exactly how you vet out those girls if you're trying to avoid a gold digger. If you want a gold digger, you're cool with that, then, and you know what you're doing, and you're not a simp, then no need to worry about that. But if you are trying to avoid them, then this is actually inadvertently a good way that he find out just be cheap on the dates, apparently, or not be throwing out enough cash and they're going to disappear. So that's good. Now, the other point he brings up there is really interesting, which is about being perceived as high status automatically because he's an American or he's a Westerner there. And he kind of jokingly says that's bad for our Russian society, be great for his sex life. That is something that is a big difference in my experience and coaching guys here in Ukraine versus Russia. In Ukraine, you don't get that automatic value, anything like you're going to get in Russia or say even in Belarus, which is in between the two countries. For sure, there's so many tourists. I'm here in Odessa, Ukraine. There's just tens of thousands of horny guys who come here during the summer chasing the girls. Kiev has that traffic, all year round. There's just a lot of foreign guys coming here. They're all telling the girls they're beautiful. Well, most of them are. 95% of guys do the exact same thing. They're super predictable, and they basically rob that automatic value if you show up here. Now, if you go to Russia, you will still have that value. Not only because there are so much fewer Westerners living there or tourists coming in, because normally you need visas to go to Russia. Here it's visa-free. It's actually also the inverse of that, which is that Ukrainian girls, for example, have visa-free to Schengen. They can go to the Middle East, visa-free, they can go to Turkey. So they travel a lot around anyways. So you're not a rare commodity, the experience of meeting you just because you're a foreigner. Now, Russians do have visa-free to some countries in the rest of Europe, further west, and also, we'll say, in the Middle East, but they don't have visa-free to Schengen. They can get a Schengen visa, but it's a little bit tricky. It's getting easier, but it is definitely not as easy as just having your biometric passport from Ukraine and then going. So they don't get to meet as many foreigners. There's a lot less foreigners going. So basically, for sure, you still get that automatic value, pump up in value. So we'll say you were going to be rated a 5, an average guy, then you probably might be a 6 or a 7 just because you're Western. So that is definitely true in my experience. But for sure, Tim, overall, don't be cheap, yes, but it seems like you're getting lucky if you're trying to avoid the gold diggers because they're not calling you back.
2. Don't ever tell her you like Russia. Russians consider us to be naive twits. If you tell a Russian girl that you want to live here in Russia, she will just laugh. When she realizes you're not kidding, it's time for her to go back to Tinder. Trust me, her dream of living in California is much more important than you are.
Definitely Tim has a good sense of humor about getting blown off, which is good. He's not looking very needy there. So, naive twits. Yes, a lot of foreign guys do get perceived as naive twits because while they come, and there's actually going to go into this later in the video, they come and they're like in awe of the beauty of the girls, and they're not maybe socially adroit to the culture that they encounter when they go to Russia. But do all Russian girls just delete you in their phone if you say you love Russia? No, not at all. So again, it seems like Tim is attracting a particular type of gold digger, this is my initial analysis, who actually wants to leave Russia and live in the West. So she's looking for a foreign guy, a white knight, to come in and save her. And I think this was a lot more common in the 1990s for sure, and definitely compared to, say, Ukraine, there are definitely a lot more of those girls in Russia, in my experience, who think, whoa, the West. More out of naivety because they've never actually traveled here and they know very little about it, just think, okay, big opportunity. But if you say, I love Russian girls, are going to turn you off, only those kind of girls are going to delete you in their phone, not be interested because they want to move to California. And again, it's a bit like with the gold diggers. I mean, if you're fine with that, if you think the woman only wants to be with me so she gets to move to, say, California, very attractive place in the West, then is this the basis for a long-term relationship? Probably not, because one of the big risks that you would be running is when she gets to California and she has her green card, you are surplus to requirements. So probably going to end up in a divorce situation very quickly there. But if you are not interested in a long-term relationship, you just interested in a pump and dump situation, it's up to your own morals. But of course, you could pretend that you don't love Russia and you really want to go back to the US, and then you would be basically lying to the girl and then she'll wonder why you never moved. But anyways, you got what you wanted. That's your own moral choice on that. What I suggest is that, well, first of all, if you do love Russia, own it. Lublю Россию. And yeah, same as if I was in Ukraine. I get asked this question all the time. Just published a video yesterday, and I talk about how it's a little bit grating and keep getting asked why I would move to Ukraine. But there are a lot of great reasons to be here. So, of course, I just tell them I love Ukraine. I'm not pretending I'm going to move back to the West anytime soon. I spent the entire year between Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. Of course, this year was a little bit more complicated with the coronavirus travel restrictions. And for sure, you're going to vet out those girls who are maybe just looking for a naive twit that they can move to the West with and use. So if you are fine with that, of course, it's a bit like gold diggers, you can do it. But it seems like Tim, again, he's eliminating accidentally the girls that probably he didn't really want to be hanging around with in the first place, because he obviously lived in Russia for a long time. So there you go. Let's move on to the third point.
3, don't underestimate the language barrier. Don't be fooled into thinking you won't need to learn Russian because your girlfriend supposedly speaks English. Miscommunication can kill a relationship. Case in point. Many years ago, my ex-girlfriend tried to tell me the following in English. Tim, ты хрюкаешь, как свинка, пока спишь. Ты такой милый вообще-то. What came out of her mouth in her limited English was, you oink like pig. The thing is, I only found this out many years later after she and I argued over why we broke up. She was actually a completely different person on the inside, but her bad English made her seem completely different from who she actually was. Pichal.
100% I agree with Tim there. Language barrier is a big issue. So if you're going to spend a lot of time in Russia, you are going to have to invest your own time into learning Russian. You will get a huge return on your investment over the long term. Now, of course, if you're just planning to go to Russia for like a 2-week holiday, you could learn the basics, but basically you're not going to learn very much if you don't invest a lot of time beforehand. And if you're not committed to the region, it's kind of your own decision. If you're a language geek like me, then of course there's no problem. You get benefit out of it anyways, an enjoyment. But for normal guys who are just spending a little trip, probably not worth investing hundreds of hours learning Russian. But definitely if you live there, you will get huge rewards. And not just because, you know, in your romantic life, also just in general, you'll have less problem with being cheated, for example. It does happen. Definitely with romance scams, actually going back into the whole dating scene. You know, scammers, they're not interested in hanging out with guys who speak Russian. Why? They're not the low-hanging fruit. They probably just, I mean, I rarely meet any scammer girls, because as soon as they hear that you speak Russian, next, let's find some naive guy in for the weekend who we can rip off. So definitely it's the best anti-scam defense. And on top of that, if you're limiting yourself to just girls who speak English or the English language groupies, then that's eliminating probably most girls in Russia, because the English language skills in Russia, in this whole region, including also Ukraine and Belarus, it's the lowest in Europe. So it's not like going to Budapest or Prague. You will really not find a super number of women who speak, or people who speak, men as well, who speak good English over the age of, say, 25. Under 25, it's gotten a lot better, but definitely about half the girls are probably not realistic to date. So you're going to get, if you learn Russian, you're going to have double the options. And, you know, even if the girl speaks English, it's always good if you can speak Russian. It always gives you that option. So yeah, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you're going to spend a lot of time, learn Russian. But while you're learning, you're going to make mistakes like she did, and it's kind of going to be funny at the same time. The other thing is, I mean, of course, there are guys who come here and they're coming normally for shorter trips or spending just a couple of months, and they just use English. When I say here, just Eastern Europe in general. Yeah, you can do that, and you can maybe get an English language groupie, as I like to call them. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're bad or something, but it just means that obviously they're a more limited pool. Also consider what I've noticed here in Ukraine. There are certain guys who live here who are foreigners and don't speak any Russian, and I see, and they have social media profiles, I see the same girls in their videos. It's a little bit weird. But if you're fine with sharing your chicks with other like-minded guys, then probably going to be cool with it. But it is a little bit weird. It shows a very limited dating pool in general. A little bit creepy at times to see that. Anyways, yeah, language barrier, something you're going to have to smash through for sure if you spend a lot of time in Russia, or you happen to be in a Russian-speaking city in another part of the former Soviet Union. So definitely thumbs up to Tim for that. Also, his pronunciation in Russian there was pretty spot on. So, молодец.
Number 4, don't be a feminist. In America, we were taught to treat women as equals, i.e., like other men. The problem is that men aren't particularly kind or caring towards each other. Russian women want you to constantly worry about them, make sure they're comfortable, and, well, take care of them in general. If you treat a Russian woman like one of your bros, you're done.
So again, spot on, Tim. Feminism, radical feminism is not a thing in Russia. So if you want that, then it's not going to be the region for you to travel to. In general, all of Eastern Europe. But yeah, 100%, you have to come across as being, first of all, more assertive. So then treating women like one of your bros, like an equal in that sense. In the dating capacity, I mean, not bullying someone, but definitely have to be leading, assertive, and be perceived as being a protector. That's definitely some of the traits that are normal in Russian culture for sure. And things like, obviously, if you've watched any of the content on my channel, splitting the bill is not something that happens on a date in Eastern Europe in general, and definitely not in Russia. So if you invite a girl out, you're paying the bill. At the same time, you don't have to be doing what he talked about at the beginning, spending thousands of dollars necessarily. Literally, if you have the right frame and you take a girl out and you just walk in the park and buy a coffee, it can also work if you have the right mentality. You don't need to be spending thousands of dollars. So if you don't have the budget for thousands of dollars, well, don't go spending thousands of dollars. Just do something else and be affirmative. But you will pay the entire bill on any dates. Just do it that way. If you have $1,000 but don't want to be taken advantage of by the scammers, then actually, as I discovered inadvertently a few years ago, and I talked about this in my high-level consultation group and also my boot camp recently, then maybe not spending the money can actually filter out all those gold diggers as well at the beginning, so you're not wasting your time and your emotions on them when they're not really into you. But definitely feminism, radical feminism, not a thing in Russia. I also have a podcast on that in more details. If you haven't seen it, go check it out after. It's also down below in the description to this video. So let's move along to the next point.
Number 6, don't buy into the Russian woman mystique. Russian women have been hyped up for so long that it has gotten to their heads. If you start staring in awe at a gorgeous, classy Russian woman on a date, you will seem like a big wimp. Even if you're fat, broken, balding like I am, make sure that that 20-year-old swimsuit model that you're dating knows who the real catch is.
If you look to a Russian woman that you have never dated a hot chick in your life, your value, your perceived value, boom, will plummet. Don't be mesmerized by the beauty. She's still a girl. She's just a woman. She's skin and bone. She's just slightly more well, a lot of times a lot more aesthetically attractive. But you get my point that if you come here with the mentality that, you know, oh, Russian women are so beautiful, and it's the same here in Ukraine or in Belarus or anywhere else in Eastern Europe, you're going to be perceived as one of those foreign twits. And the scammers are going to be they're going to be licking their chops to get their claws into you and steal your money. So definitely, for many reasons, you don't want to pedestalize the women. So much content on that. I have another one, why you don't want to be a simp. Another podcast up above in the card down below in the description. But 100% Tim, this is a major mistake made by foreign men when they come to Russia.
Tim, maybe you were dumped 100+ times because you're an insensitive weirdo. That is 100% correct. All my relationships crashed and burned because of me. I am tall, successful, very good at speaking, and quite confident. But I'm also a self-centered, angry redneck loner. And that's why I've had so many first dates and so few second ones. Thankfully though, foreign guy, you are not me. You still have a chance, and if you take my advice, you can find the Lena or Natasha of your dreams and have lots of kids with them during a long and happy marriage. But one thing, seriously, never act cheap. Never.
So there Tim alludes to the fact that apparently he had many first dates but not second dates, and Russia is pretty similar to other parts of Eastern Europe in the sense that getting dates is not really the big issue. It's getting quality dates where the girl is not a scammer or a gold digger, if you're trying to avoid the gold diggers, that is. That's the real challenge. So, you know, whether you get a first, you get a second date or not, that's not really a good metric because scammers, they're probably going to go on 2 or 3 dates with you while they rob you blind of your money and your emotions, suck those emotions, that good emotions out of you, churn you out miserable. So it seems like the fact that he was cheap, as I was saying in the beginning, definitely got rid of all those gold diggers. Fortunately, it probably also cost him meeting sincere women. This is actually a question that did come up in my Slavic Seduction Secrets Bootcamp, because one of the participants, he asked me, so Connor, I mean, on those first dates, if I'm not being lavish, do I risk like the girl just won't come and see me, or again being perceived as cheap? I was like, yeah, there is a calculated risk in doing that, but you have to weigh it up. You need to also get rid of all those scammers and stuff. So the way to manage that is don't be perceived as cheap. You are paying for the date. You don't talk about money, because that's another thing, the mistake that many foreigners make, is because the price levels in general tend to be a lot lower than in the West. It's not true so much in Moscow. It's a little bit closer, but maybe outside of St. Petersburg, Moscow is definitely going to be like a third, a quarter, a fifth of the price of wherever you're coming from in the West. And they tend to say, everything is so cheap, oh my God, everything's a disaster. Because then, of course, if you're not spending huge amounts of money, of course you look cheap, because you just said everything is super cheap and it's nothing. So you've also framed it in that way, and also it devalues anything that you do offer, because you just basically said, well, it's kind of not really anything to me to do that, to buy it. So definitely don't be perceived as cheap. At the same time, don't fall into the trap of being a simp. 100%, that's what you don't want to be in Eastern Europe, because you will get eaten alive here by the swarms of scammer girls, whether it's in St. Petersburg or Moscow, or you were traveling somewhere else in the region. It also happens here, obviously, Scam Central, Odessa, Mama. So great video by Tim. I think it's interesting. I don't agree with everything. I critiqued it there, where I think he is a layman. He's not a dating coach, or it's not what he does on his channel all the time. They do have some videos interviewing foreign guys who've met Russian women and are dating them. But pretty valuable, I think. Go watch the whole video. I left a little bit out as well for you to consume on your own. And this video I have made in the exact same spot as my previous vodcast, which I filmed well over a month ago. And as you saw, although the sun has now dipped behind the Potemkin steps that I can look up to there, with the landmarks here in Odessa. But what weather do we have? It is the end of November, almost into December. Wow, and it was this sunny here. So it felt like it was kind of Groundhog Day, deja vu. I was back in the same spot, but actually the sun doesn't stay up for as long. So that's why we've lost it a bit quicker, unfortunately, in this vodcast. When I was away for the month, I was in Western Ukraine primarily. There I actually filmed a good bit. I went to Lviv. Lovely Lviv, gonna have a great vlog from there coming up. And I went up into the Carpathian Mountains nearby in Western Ukraine and did a little trip there. And I think that's gonna be a super interesting vlog for you to watch. It's gonna be coming up in the next few weeks here on the channel. If you want to improve your knowledge, your training in terms of dating in Russia or somewhere else in Eastern Europe, as I alluded to, I have my bootcamp, Slavic Seduction Secrets, which I'm actually gonna launch in the next week, relaunch. So it's going to be open again, live. Might be the last time I ever do it live, but we'll see. But that's what I'm thinking right now. So the only way to get notified and get the opportunity to join that is to be one of my loyal friends on my free mailing list. How do you join that? Down below, there is a link. You click it, you type in your email address, you confirm your email, and then you're on that list as a free gift. As a thank you, you get access to free checklist, 5 biggest mistakes made by Western men when they come to Eastern Europe to date beautiful Slavic women. That's complete for free. Boom, go do it. It's a no-brainer. At the very least, you'll learn something with that checklist. And definitely, I mean, now you've got Tim's advice, you got all my advice, my critiques, and you got the checklist. You're pretty good to get started. So definitely, you want to get in on that. It was amazing the last time. We go into things like how to plan the perfect date. Well, you learn from Tim there about how not to plan perfect dates, but you still need to know how to actually do it. Also, if you are trying to avoid the gold diggers, probably don't leave it up to serendipity like Tim did, and actually have a plan to avoid them. And we go into that. We got the gold digger test. We also have a test to see if the girl is a good long-term fit for you. She mightn't be a gold digger, but it might be the best fit for you, and you don't want to be investing years of your life just all those emotions and of course some financial investment as well into a relationship that isn't going to be right for you over the long term. We're all excited we meet someone in the beginning, but after that initial honeymoon period, definitely you need to have that on point so you don't over invest over the long term. And of course, you're going to need to know how to be a Russian, a real man, and actually lead and be assertive. We go into that as well. So maybe we'll actually see each other on those live streams I'm actually kicking it off on the 9th of December this time round. So in any case, if I don't see you there, I'm going to see you here in the next video on the Volka Volcast. Do svidaniya, do pobachna from Odessa, Ukraine, and maybe see you very soon in videos from Russia. Ciao, ciao.
SAR Experience.